Hello to everyone. I think I'm going live. Um, Seeing all these messages in the chat. I was getting a strange message that my streaming rate is not correct. I hope it's okay. Ben, I'm sure you'll jump in and tell me if there's a problem. Um, okay, there's Ben, there's Anna, there's Cynthia. Oh wow, it's really streaming in now. Keeping an eye on Wimbledon. Yeah. Boy, Jack Draper did a great job in that first set against Djokovic, but then it looked like Djokovic was coming back, but I had to leave and come to work here. So um, I'm sort of a tennis fanatic, so it's hard to miss watching Wimbledon. But for something like this, it's definitely worth it. Whoa, so many people coming in. Good. It looks like my technical problems were a false warning from YouTube here. Oh, and people are talking about their anvils. I will. I'll share a funny story with people that are in the chat. Yesterday was my final dress rehearsal for the program that I'm doing right now here in Chicago, and it was the first performance in front of a live audience at the Lyric Opera since last February. And so we had about 60 people, friends of the singers. My sister and nephew were actually able to come to the performance. And as I say, it was really an exciting experience to be able to do live music. And uh, we were granted permission, the pianist and conductor, not the stage director, just conductor and pianist were also given permission to perform without a mask. So the singers had been rehearsing all week without a mask, but unfortunately the music staff only got the go ahead on Thursday to take our masks off. So we got into the concert, and believe it or not, I walked out for the second half of the program with my mask on. Totally did not realize I had a mask on. I conducted the entire second half of the program with with my mask on. Didn't realize till about 30 seconds before the end of the entire program did I realize I had been conducting with a mask on. And so I decided I'd better just leave it on for the rest of the concert and took it off when I took my bow. But it was funny to realize how these masks have become part of our bodies. And no one gestured to me that I had a mask on. The pianist didn't say anything. So I just made sure that for the performance tomorrow night, the pianist knew that he had to just make sure I went out without a mask. But we had a great performance. It was fun. It really feels like we're getting back to some sense of normalcy. Um, so that was my adventure for the week. I'm looking through the chat here. Boy, all these names: Evelyn, Anna, Nikki. Da, da, da. Let's see. I also conducted an entire Bruckner mask once with the laundry tag at the back of my suit jacket. I think that was more unfortunate than keeping my mask on yesterday. Um, da, da, da. Dangerously hot and dry in Western Canada. Wow, yes. The northwestern part of the states, Oregon, Washington, they're just in the middle of this most incredible heat wave. Temperatures of over 100 degrees in parts of the country that rarely break 90. It's just so outrageous what's going on with the weather. Da, 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 interludes, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, someone in Alberta is talking about taking the mask off. I know we're just hoping that for us in the States right now, it's just going to be a continual upward progression because we would hate to take a step back right now after all the work that's being done. I had a long Zoom call this morning with people in New York because uh, we're going full speed ahead for an opening in September, starting on the 11th of September with a Verdi Requiem, which is going to be, is going to be interesting after not having more than three people in a room for the last few months to get to rehearsing 120 people. Uh, but Bruce Springsteen gave a concert on Broadway in a theater on Saturday night. I guess it was a packed house from what I read. Most of the audience unmasked. They had to all show proof of vaccination, but I think that's the direction we're going to be going at the Met. But boy, we are scrambling to get everything in order for this for a September opening. I just think that the curve toward getting back to normal has just bumped up so dramatically in the past week or so even. Um, and I hope in all the places where I'm seeing all these people in the chat right now that you're feeling that same return to normalcy here. Uh, Cathedral singing without masks in Atlanta. Great, great. Who else? Boy, hello, Jane, Dorothy. I think today is going to be my first real chorus rehearsal in a long time. We did um, a reduced concert at the Met about a month ago now, where we 12 choristers got together with an orchestra of 20, and we did a couple of pieces, standard pieces from the repertoire that we've done, an Idomeneo chorus, Magic Flute, and it was fun, but it wasn't like digging back into this standard operatic rep that we're going to be looking at today. So I am really excited about having a chorus rehearsal today. It's been so long. Oh dear. Canada, da, da, da. Huh. We're not allowed to sing here in the UK, only professionals. Amateur choirs in groups of six. Whoa. I also think in New York we're trying to get together our children's chorus because we open the season. I think the second night is a Boris Godunov with a large group of children, and we're hoping that we can find ways to get the kids maybe together outdoors during the summer to start rehearsals. Hopefully at the very beginning of August. Um, uh, oh dear. Someone with a message about a large group going to Russia to see a football game and positive testing coming back. I mean, I think there are going to be little bumps along the road here, but it certainly looked like Wimbledon was pretty full from what I saw watching on TV this morning. Um, so a lot of difficulty with the Galway, Ireland. Wow. We've got it. Yeah. Hmm. Um, so I mean, we're getting ready to start in. I just want to make sure I've got my score here. I've got a keyboard off to the side. Oh, and my iPad keeps turning off. This technology will be the end of me eventually. I'm hoping that I've done my last Zoom coaching, although I'm probably celebrating too soon. Over the past uh, year and a half, it seems like now, it's been so hard getting used to coaching on Zoom and having singers sing. a cappella for most of the time, and it was just a rough time for all the students. My Juilliard students, trying to work with them and stay connected. It's been a real challenge for that, and it's so amazing to see what you guys have done with all of the remote work with getting a chorus together, and how much trouble we've been having at Juilliard just putting a pianist and a singer and a coach together at the same time. Um, so I'm hoping we're moving through all that. We're getting close. Let's see. Oh, I'm waiting for Wimbledon results. Does anybody know, did Djokovic beat Mr. what was his name? Draper, I believe, who looked really good in that first set. Let's see. Da, 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 da. Someone suggested Wembley Stadium. Hmm. Okay, maybe one more minute and then we will launch into this. Yes, you did. Thank you for the Djokovic news. I'm sorry for you Draper fans. It's always amazing when these upsets look like they're starting to happen, and then the top seeds just step up and you know get their game in line. Okay, enough tennis. We're going to get to music. Uh, I'm going to proceed with the chorus book in order. So that means we're going to start with the Brindisi from Traviata. So I think it's time. Rehearsal is now started. We can all turn off our cell phones, which is sort of what I have to do every time we start at the Met, and let's just dig right in here. Um, Traviata, drinking song. It's one of the most popular pieces in all of opera. Again, the chorus is a bit of a backup group here, but our participation is important, and we've got to make sure that we get the style of this boisterous chorus. First thing I do when I start out with a chorus is just check through the text. Um, so, uh, what we want to make sure is our Italian A vowels are nice and bright, our O vowels are nice and closed when they need to be. The first sentence, a libiam amor fra calici più caldi baci avrà. So that's just the flow of the text. Now we'll get the text in rhythm. Libiam short, libiam amor short, fracalici più caldi baci avrà. Now you look at that last bar there, baci avrà. There are some scores where it looks like the chi and the ah are sort of printed together. This score makes it look very simple as to how to separate those syllables. I like the breaking up of chi ahavra. Some scores have ba cha ha ha havra. I think that's too many vowels on too many notes on one vowel. For clarity, I think we should do ba chi havra. So this first phrase is very straightforward, but there's a lot of little indications of phrasing that Verdi wants. So when we start the first note, we'll do an accent release, libiam release, amor release, fraca release, accent. Li ci più di ba ci avrà, and the grace notes need to be very early to be able to sound. You will hear many violettas and alfredos being a little sloppy with the grace notes, some of them even eliminating them. But I think it's very important for us to try to get that in. So in tempo, I may get close to a D. Alipiam amor fraca lisci più caldiba ci avrà chunk. Not too long that avrà, so that we end with the orchestra. Boom, right there. Second verse, very similar. Now we get to sing the melody the second time we come in. Crescendo, and then staccato on the bottom, which is always a problem. One, godiamo la tazza, il cantico, la notte bella e il riso. I went through a lot there very quickly. Let's just take a look at this. We attack relatively softly that ah. The first time we sang, we had an accent on the ah. This one, we have a softer attack on the ah, crescendo through the ah, and then a short pickup, godiamo. Yeah? Now, text. Godiamo la tazza il can. So you got a lot to get in on that one little quick note. Tazza il can. We attack the con forte diminuendo, piccola release. Now, notte bella e il riso. I'll repeat that. La notte bella e il riso. Watch out for this next word. We see IN, and it's very easy to let this vowel get a little too open. Make sure it's a real E vowel. In questo paradiso ne scopra il nuovo di. Again, the placement of the vowels and the grace notes. Really careful. So sko is short, but then pra, you have to sing a nice a vowel on that grace note to make it read. Scopra il nuovo di. Okay. Dynamics. Start softly for the a, crescendo, go, and then that go is really short. It's people tend to do godiamo, slide, slide, slide. That's not what Verdi wrote. He wants godiamo la tazza, il ca. Getting all of those vowels in, it's always important to think, what is the key vowel? And for me, the key vowel in this little collection of them is the A vowel of tazza. Tazza. If you think of moving to the A, and then il is very quick, and they don't need to be carefully formed, each of these vowels. Tatsailkan. So that's about all you can get out of there. You'll never get Tatsailkan. No way. Tatsailkan. Piccola. Pianissimo. Notte bella e il riso. Another staccato. In questo paradiso ne scopra il nuovo di. It's a lot to get in, and the tempo, bum, 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 bum. Not too fast, not too slow, huh? Now the next section. We get a lot of these sections in Verdi, Rossini, these staccato background chords while the soloist is singing the melody. This is basically just si, go, ya, mo, la, ta, sa, el, kan. Now see, the syllabification here is a little bit different. Ta, sa, el, kan, ti, go, la, no, tia, bella, el riso, godiamo, in questo paradiso, ne scopra il nuovo di. Now, it all should be pianissimo. The most interesting part, of course, is the bass. Godiamo. That little progression through the chord. It's very important when the crescendo starts about 8 bars in that the crescendo is led by the bass part. So, in other words, keep the alto, the soprano, and the tenor parts light, and let the basses godiamo in questo paro. Let the basses lead through this little section with the crescendo. Um, and then the last thing is, as we get to the end of this on page 14, you see the last bar of page 14, it says forte in the orchestra and crescendo again till the end. One of the little stylistic things that happens in Rossini and Verdi is that when you get to a final progression like this, where the eighth notes then back up to fill the whole bar, in other words, si ne scopra il nuovo di, to lead to the final chord, we do a slight reduction in the dynamic on the second eighth note in the last bar of the page so that we have room to make a bigger crescendo. So, in other words, this long section of staccato eighth notes has had a crescendo within it. So by the time we get to page 14, il nuovo di, nesco pra il nuovo di, we're already forte there, as is the orchestra. But then we have to think, well, I have to do less to make the crescendo seem to be working. My mentor, my teacher, Maestro Benaglio from La Scala, with his limited English, used to say here, less for crescendo, which meant drop down. There was no, he never said piano for crescendo. He always said less for crescendo, meaning let the dynamic come down somewhat to allow you to do the crescendo. So in other words, this page 14, il nuovo di, ne scopra il nuovo di, si ne scopra il nuovo di, 3, 4, off on the downbeat. Okay. That's it in a nutshell. I'm just looking through to see if there's anything else that I left out. All through this section, there has to be this feeling of the champagne glasses in your hand. You're toasting to one another. It has to sound bubbly like champagne. And it also has to observe the accents of Verdi and the staccati of Verdi. All of the grace notes you have to work to try to get in. Very good. I think you've got that one down. No problems. We're going to move to Habanera. Now, first of all, the most important thing is we're now in French. French is a language that it's funny. I've worked with so many French diction coaches over my lifetime, and worked with many French choruses over my career. To get the French to agree on how to pronounce their language is one of the most difficult chores that there is, quite frankly. First of all, every language is constantly evolving, and the accepted pronunciation is changing a little bit with time. I think it's most drastic in French, though. The French that was at one time we were all told we needed to sing with French that would have been done at the Opéra Comique in Paris. That was the standard for our French diction. It's changed a lot in the sense of vowels, open and closed vowels have changed quite a bit, and elision has changed over the years. And even among French diction experts, you will never find total agreement on every pronunciation or every elision. So right off the bat, anyone that says or thinks they're an expert in French diction has to take that down, has to take that with a grain of salt. There really is no absolute right or absolute wrong with French. Um, what's important in a choral situation, of course, is that everybody agrees on what is going to be done. And that's where the chorus master has to step in and say, please, this is what we're going to do as a group. Let's not argue about it. It's the way it is. We have to come to an agreement. My diction source has always been a book that was printed back in the 50s or 60s by a one no maybe 60s 70s by a person whose name was John Moriarty. His diction is Diction for Singers. It covers Italian, French, German, Latin, and for me, it's the clearest, most straightforward way to approach these diction questions. Let's just go through this text for a minute, and I'll show you some of the things that we're talking about. Um, let's just read through the text at the beginning. L'amour est un oiseau rebelle que nul ne peut apprivoiser. Il sait bien en vain qu'on l'appelle s'il lui convient de refuser. Now, I just read that straight through in French. To me, everything seemed pretty clear in my mind, but I'm going to go back and slowly go through that and just talk about a few points. First of all, l'amour, that verb est, used to be very clearly pronounced as an open e, meaning eh, eh. Never an E like an American would say, meh, meh, a big wide open vowel that drops too low, but certainly not E, the closed E. Today, many people are starting to take that verb and turn it into a closed E sound. I believe strongly, and we'll find an example, a phrase later. I believe strongly that that verb has to have a slightly more open E sound. Now we have some elisions, which are pretty. Everyone will agree on these elisions. L'amour est un oiseau. So I've elided l'amour est un oiseau rebelle. Now we get to the rebelle thing here, and we get this as a three-syllable word, rebelle. And some people say, no, 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 no. You don't change the pitch, so it's rebelle. That the L is just sung, but we don't do that little vowel in that last syllable. Well, I'm going to beg to differ on this one. I think it's very important to sing, for the most part, these final unstressed syllables in French. Most languages refer to these vowels as schwas, but in French you can actually have a special term for them, and they're called muets, M-U-E-T. And the question is, do you sing the muet or do you let it fly? And there's a wonderful letter from a French poet, Romain Rolland, who was collaborating with Richard Strauss when Strauss was setting Salome in French. And Strauss wrote to him and said, "What do you do with these unstressed syllables? I'm losing my. I'm out of the camera here. I hope I'm going to adjust better. Um, what do you do with these unstressed final syllables?" And Roland wrote back and said, "Oh, you must sing them. You have to sing them. The muet is one of the most beautiful parts of the French language, and you have to set it." And so I have always referred back to this letter in when you get into a situation like that. There's something beautiful about singing rebelle with that little flick of the sound at the end of it. Bizet wrote a 16th note there, and I think it's important that we sing this vowel. So in other words, when we're going through this phrase, here's a D somewhere. L'amour est un oiseau belle que nul ne peut apprivoiser. So this sound has to be in the line as far as I'm concerned. So I will teach my chorus to sing a very gentle sound on that unstressed syllable. Then going on, que nul ne peut elided, t'apprivoiser. Now look at what comes up here. I c'est bien. And here we have the closed E for the word and, which is E, nice and closed. And then we have the verb, it is, se, immediately following this closed E. If you believe in closing the verb vowel so much, you're going to get bien. You're going to get two closed E's right in a row. And this to me is an extremely important thing to differentiate the closed E of E versus the slightly more open E of se. So bien. The difference is slight, but I believe it has to be there. Il s'est bien en vain qu'on l'appelle. Here we go, the little unstressed syllable again. Qu'on l'appelle s'il lui convient de refuser. Keeping all the vowels with a value. Unstressed vowels are just as beautiful a vowel as a stressed vowel. So that I believe that when you sing these final unstressed syllables in French, it makes the legato more even across the phrase. Now, let's look at what else is going on here. Pianissimo leggero. I love it when the sound of the chorus here just it is like a wisp of sound with the melody there and the mezzo soprano not having to force to sing l'amour, 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 l'amour. So the chorus needs to feel l'amour. Absolutely diaphanous, no beats, no accents, absolutely even. Um, that gets through that section. Now, I have a funny story about that. One time I was in Vienna and the chorus had not done Carmen in like months or whatever. And a wonderful mezzo soprano, Agnes Balza, was singing Carmen, and she finished her opening beginning phrases, Il n'a rien dit, mais il me plaît, and nobody in the chorus came in because they hadn't had a brush up. You know, these entrances, if you're not used to it, it's hard to know when you interrupt Carmen and all of that stuff. So, for some reason, nobody in the chorus came in, and Agnes Balza turned around and gave them the nastiest stare you could imagine. Where are you guys? You're my backup group here. And you know, eventually it got back on. But stuff like this happens all the time on stage. But not this is an extreme case of a chorus, entire chorus not realizing hey, it's our turn to sing. Um, so we have that interjection. Then there are all these prolongatoires. Um, I think this phrase you have to be very careful with it. It looks so short and so simple. It has to be very crisp, but it can't sound mechanical. Regarde-toi, regarde-toi, natural. I've had so many conductors tell me, well, maestro, the orchestra should be staccato, so please make sure that the chorus sings it very short. Well, I'm sorry, we're voices. We're not machine guns here. And what they want is something like "Pranga da wa," very, very short, accented, everything. And I don't believe it should be that way. The chorus should be mirroring Carmen's, you know, joking with Don Jose saying, you know, you better watch out because if I'm in love with you, you better watch out. So it should be laughing, jokingly sung. So not too short, these prongadatoire. Next intervention. The the women and the first tenors are singing basically the melody. Um, and so I think it's very important for these two parts to come out, whereas the second tenor and the basses are just a little, almost like a little background inflection. So they can sing something like la mu, just a little gentle pulse on the attack of the half notes, and then absolutely out of the way. So in other words, no la mu, don't let the sound get sustained on the half note. The 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 tenor, first tenor in the women though, l'amour est enfant de bohème, il n'a jamais, jamais connu de loi. Si tu ne m'aimes pas, je t'aime. Very expressive with the text. This is your chance to play Carmen, basically. So very delicate. It's not too loud, but still, it has to have the sense of the text and the sense of playing off one another. Text wise, again, we have this open E. L'amour est enfant, not l'amour est enfant de bohème. Il n'a jamais, jamais connu de loi. Si tu ne m'aimes pas, je t'aime. Si je t'aime, prends garde à toi. Okay? Prends garde à toi. Fine. Prends garde à toi. Then we have the finale of the first verse, à toi. Now, it's very important to attack the really gentle and not to crescendo until the mezzo soprano gets to her high F sharp and starts really biting into the sound, and then we feed in under her. So in other words, do not crescendo immediately. Wait till Carmen gets up to the top F sharp, and then we crescendo with her, always being careful, realizing you're many versus one. Don't let the crescendo overpower her. And then we get to the downbeat together. Bum, off. Um, the tied eighth note here, this is always an issue with choral singing. I'm sure you deal with this all the time. Does this mean we put sound into the downbeat, or does it mean we cut off on the downbeat? There's no fast rule on this. In a situation like this, where the orchestra has a short downbeat, the cleanest way for the chorus to do this is to cut off directly on the downbeat. So in other words, silence on the downbeat. Bum, off on the downbeat. Okay? Verse 2, same structure. Pianissimo, tu, deux, trois, vite. Now look what he did with vite here. He did not write vite here. He wrote vite, il vient sans. I think for the chorus, I always like to just sing across this dotted eighth note with just an elision. So, tout autour de toi, vite, vite, il vient, s'en va. And now we have an elision question. Puis il revient, or puis il revient. You know, again, I usually let them put a very light elision here. Some people don't like it. Some people think puis il revient without any little elision is just as disturbing. I generally use a very puis il revient. Puis il revient. You know, every time I do it, I think about it and I say, maybe no elision. Sometimes I will say, please don't make any elision because I know that a few people that have done it many years ago will put an elision in there and it'll make it very light. But in general, this is an elision that should be extremely light. Let's agree. Let's agree we take out this one. I think in this point in my life, I'll take it out. Puis il revient. See, and then I say it without, and I think it should be there. I'm going to change my mind. Let's put a very, very, very light elision here. Puis il revient. When you do an elision, the important thing to remember is it is not the consonant that is important, it's the next vowel. So if you think, puis il revient, puis il revient. See, if you really move into the vowel of il, when you put a very light elision there, it's not going to disturb. It's when you It's when you give that Z elision sound a life of its own that it sounds wrong. Puis no. Puis il revient. You see, just by making the vowel the important moment there and not the consonant, you can accommodate a very light elision there. And I don't think anyone is going to complain about it. Okay, so to repeat. Tout autour de toi vite, vite, il vient, s'en va, puis il revient. Tu crois le tenir, il t'évite. Now here is different. T'évite is different than the vite in the first phrase. Here I think you need the muet. So il t'évite, tu crois l'évite, il te tient. Yeah. And again, you want this to be diaphanous, all almost invisible. It should sound almost like the smoke that the women are going to blow in the next smoking chorus in their next entrance. So very light but really pronounced diction. One thing Maestro Levine used to say all the time is the softer you go, the louder the diction has to be. Okay, so tout autour de toi vite, vite, il vient, s'en va, puis il revient. Tu crois le tenir, il t'évite, tu crois l'éviter, il te tient. Yeah? Prends garde à toi, prends garde à toi. L'amour est enfant de bohème is the same as before. Same ending. Wait for her to crescendo at the end and then fill in. And that is Habanera. Did I miss any French moment that has been causing anyone undue angst anywhere through this? I'm gonna look in the chat. Someone's saying this is so great, but how am I going to remember it all? You're not going to remember it all in one fell swoop. It's going to be part of how you approach jumping into a score in a foreign language in a style that may be very different from what you're used to uh, singing in either a church choir or an oratorio choir or even a small ensemble. Opera is about diction and it's about effect. Let's see. Ben is taking notes. He'll tell it. That's perfect. That's the way to confront the how do I get this all at once? It's not all at once. Uh, every Carla said all of our life is a rehearsal. Everything is preparation for getting better. So no, in no way would I expect anyone to get this all at once. Um, the R sound is just a flip forward R. Um, where rebelle. You would never do you never want to get to that French guttural sound that's just foreign to music. You've got unless you're singing a chanson in cabaret. Yeah, that's listen to Edith Piaf and her R's are just scary in a way, but that's what they're supposed to be. But when you do a word like autre, uh, c'est bien avant que je préfère, just a quick flip. Make sure that an R in French doesn't really roll like pref. You don't want to ever get it to sound Scottish in a way. It's got to just flip through it, but never a guttural low throaty sound. L'amour, for example. L'amour, l'amour. It's just one tiny flip forward. You would never want to sing l'amour, l'amour. That that funny sound that it's hard to describe what it actually is. You can't use that sound in classical operatic French writing. Okay. Anything else in the little roll, but not a mad one? There you go. Yeah, even a little flip. Let's say a little flip. Nasal N in vient. Okay, let's talk about the nasals for just a minute. Vient. Let's bien. There is no N in those nasals. The trick to the nasal is not putting an N or an M anywhere in it. You want to flip right from the nasal sound, vient de refuser, vient de refuser. If you put the N, vient de, if you in any way change your mouth to produce a close, if you clench down on your jaw at the end of vient de, you want to try to eliminate any change that's going to put an N there. Uh, Let me find another eight. The nasals are easier than you think. There are only four of them, right? There's the a nasal, which is uh, let's find one without a glide. L'amour est un. No, that's not it. Let's do bien, bien, well, bien, vient, vient. Then you have an O nasal, uh, uh, don, don, O nasal. Then you have an OE nasal, which is the un jour. And then you have the hard nasal, which is the open E nasal, le vin. And then the A nasal. I'm pulling these out of my head. Je pense, je pense, pense, no N. Uh, they're just sounds. They don't have a consonant at the end of them. They're a vowel without a consonant. Who else? Anybody else? The R and croix. Croix. It's a fast flip. Croix. Croix. Prends garde. Prends garde. Looking through the questions. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, there was someone. This is. I think I could have been. To think I could have been watching some rubbish on telly. That's perfect. I love it from Jane. Any other questions? I hope. Prends garde à toi. I'm looking for nasals in this. Enfant. There we go. Enfant. No N. Enfant. L'amour est enfant de bohème. Il n'a jamais connu de loi. Si tu ne m'aimes pas, not too many nasals there. Prends garde à toi. Okay? Super. You got this, French. It's not as hard as you think. Next. Okay. The Anvil Chorus. You've all been waiting because you all have your anvils. First of all, let's talk about where these anvils go before we even go. No. Let's get this text. Here we have the opening of the Anvil Chorus. These sentences are such convoluted Italian. The verbs are all in the wrong place. The adjectives are in the wrong place. This is a trait of many 19th century Italian opera libretti. The poetry is so convoluted. Just looking at this first phrase, vedi le fosche notturne spoglie de cieli sveste l'immensa volta. First of all, you have a lot of syllables where the vowel of the stressed syllable needs to be looked up in a dictionary because there are no rules to really govern this. Vedi is a closed E. Vedi le fosche. Fosche is an open O. Fosche. The stressed syllable falls on a vowel that can be open or closed. There are no set rules in Italian. You need to go to a good Italian dictionary, Gazzante, Zingarelle, and look up the adjective fosche and see that the first syllable is in fact an open O and not a closed O. Notturne, spoglie. There's another word where the O in that stressed syllable, you just need to go to a dictionary, and spoglie is an open O vowel. Cieli, heaven, open E. Sveste, open E. Immensa, open E. Volta, open O. I'm going to speak the whole text again. Vedi, that's the one closed E. And again, closed and open in Italian is not quite as differentiated as in French or German. Vedi le fosche notturne, double T, notturne. A double consonant in Italian means that the vowel leading into the double consonant needs to be stopped a bit. It doesn't mean that the consonant is twice as big in a double consonant as a single. It means there's a stop in the flow, in the vowel flow. So notturne, notturne versus notturne, notturne. I can't even say it without that double. Notturne. Spoglie de cieli sveste here's a double M. L'immensa, l'immensa. It means that the E vowel before is slightly suspended and you sort of grab onto the double consonant a bit. L'immensa volta. So, and now I want to talk for a bit about sound, which I haven't done much talking about because there's so much to talk about in these pieces. This chorus needs to sound dark. It needs to sound heavy. You're gypsies. You're just waking up. Dawn is just breaking. We need to find a way to get the vowels all to sound on this one even dark plane. Something like Vedi le fosche notturne, spoglie del cieli sveste l'immensa volta. And a melody, if I can find a pitch here somewhere. I'm not going to worry about the pitch. Vedi le fosche notturne spoglie de cieli sveste l'immensa volta. I try to keep every vowel here and not changing the vowels riding higher as the scale goes up. This is something that's going to be hard to do remotely because it really, you sort of feed off your colleague when you sing like this. If you can just think, ve, ve, there's our sound. Vedi le fosche notturne spoglie de cieli sveste l'immensa volta. If you can keep that height in the vowel all the way through this phrase as it descends and goes up and down, that's the key to making an Italianate, dramatic, operatic sound, as far as I'm concerned. What you want to avoid is something like Vedi le fosche notturne spoglie, ne cieli that the vowels keep getting brighter and brighter the higher it goes. You have to somehow find a way to let those vowels drop down into your breath support so that as the melody progresses, it sounds, let's say, like a cello playing this melody. It's one instrument. The tone color remains the same throughout the vowel progression and throughout the melodic progression into the higher tessitura as we go from da 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 pa 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 da da da. Each upper note of the components of the phrase keeps the same quality of sound. Okay? I mean, we could spend hours going through every little detail of these phrases. Look at the next phrase. Sembra una vedova che al fin si toglie I bruni panni. If you look at this phrase, the first double consonant is on the word panni. So we want to try to get the rest of the phrase absolutely legato. Sembra una vedova che al fin si toglie I bruni panni, panni. The lift of the A vowel, that double N, gives the phrase its Italian lilt. So it's important to keep everything else single vowel, single consonant, and then panni ond'era in volta. Yeah. Now, the other thing that I've just been going over because I've been looking at other things. Look at all the vowels you have to get on one note. Sembra una ve. Sembra. The key vowel is the A. Sembra una vedova. Now, this next Kal is a really hard combination to get. You can't You cannot do calfin. You have to find a way to do calfin. Calfin. Sembra una vedova che al fin si toglie, that's just one glide, I bruni panni ond'era involta. And then the trick of this quick little 30-second note turn is to get a really bright vowel on the involta. So, panni ond'era involta, very quick. Yeah? Next. All'opera, double L, tenuto, all'opera. Dagli, martella, double L, martella. And now we finally pick up these instruments that you've been searching on. What's written in the score is we have a group of people playing anvils on beats 1 and 3. And the other group is beating the anvil on 2 and 4. Okay, so it's a sensation of bum chunk, bum chunk, bum chunk, bum chunk, bum chunk, bum chunk, bum chunk. Yeah. So I would say you and really you want sort of the brighter sound, bum boom, and the thuddier sound on the offbeat. So it's beam chunk, beam chunk, beam chunk. So I would analyze your individual anvils or your pot or pan or whatever you're going to use and decide, am I a bright downbeat person or am I a thuddier offbeat person? Okay. And the time that you play it goes right through this melody of I del gitano I giorni a bed double B a bed double L la. And it's constantly through that one off, and then we repeat that phrase chi del gitano chi I giorni a bella. When we get to the end of that page, jo, chunk, chunk, and then everybody plays on the downbeat of the page turn. Okay? And then we sing, chi del gitano, I giorni a bella, la zingara. Then everybody chunk, 4-1 for your anvils. So you will sing La Zingarella, and your anvils will come in that last little turn thing. Okay? What else can I say about the anvils? Be very careful that you don't drag. You have to realize you are not setting the tempo with your anvils. Your anvils are matching the tempo generated by the singing. Once the anvils start to take over, it turns into a total nightmare, and I've experienced it many times. Okay, let's just look at this the melody that everybody says is the Anvil chorus. Del gitano. The trick with this melody is, yes, there are accents on 1 and on the big beat, but the passing eighth notes are what gives the melody the energy. So you've got to find a way that you are right square on a very full eighth note that doesn't run ahead through the melody. You need to have a sense of chi del gitano I giorni a bella, that the eighth notes are important. Yes, the big beats with the anvils are important. Eighth notes are just as important. God, I see I'm behind what I thought my timing was going to be here because there's just so much detail to go in with all of these pieces. Um, I'm gonna just do a little. I'm gonna skip ahead. Page 32. Versami un tratto. Do you see that there? For 100, if not more years, we sang Versami un tratto as printed. And now, within the past 20 or 30 years, a critical edition has come out, and we now sing Versami un tratto. Everybody, all the men up to high E, down to low E. Um, there's been a huge study of Verdi that's gone on, and a lot of critical editions of his operas have come out, and some of them don't take into account traditions that have grown over the years. But this is one that I think it's a better choice. Pour me a drink. I want another drink. Versami un tratto. It's a little bit more energetic than Versami un tratto. Sort of dies. So I would ask that we make that correction. Okay. Um, I want to move ahead to humming. I want to give you my thoughts on humming. The trick to humming is when you hum, sing the NG in the word England, and you've got it. So, in other words, instead of humming with your mouth closed and your lips pursed, if you just think England, if you think of the hum as an NG and loosen your jaw, you should be able to hum with much more sound and much more freedom. So, I don't know where B flat is. It can't be that. Tongue should be laying flat at the bottom of your mouth. You should be able to wiggle your jaw all over the place. This chorus just I don't know how to you got to experience it live in a theater to know the magic that it really exerts. A couple things. I would observe the breath at the end of the first phrase. Now there's a little lift, and the eighth notes are sighing, and so they may take a little time. Release. So in other words, don't think 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1. No, it's 1, 2, 3. Breath. Now, I've changed how I've done this over my many years. I like doing this all on one breath. So, oh, this next phrase, even though there's a breath mark before the G, a phrasing mark, I think it works better to just expand this phrase right across. This allows you to stagger breathe, meaning wherever you run out of breath, you take another one. But try not to take a breath where there could be a breath. In other words, right there, the top of 39 in the second bar. If we're going to stagger breathe and conceal this phrase mark, make sure you don't breathe there. Okay? Another thing, my teacher taught me that when possible, put the altos on the tenor part. Why? I believe the humming chorus, the tenor octave is the key octave, and the soprano octave is basically just the harmonics of our unison melody of the tenors singing in their tessitura. So altos, you can help feed that the bottom line for the tenors. In other words, your B flat in the tenor register is going to have that richness of the alto register down there, whereas the tenors are not going to want to sing that note like a baritone. They're going to want to keep their heady spin in that B flat. So the blend of altos singing in a chest register and the tenors singing almost in the head voice makes a beautiful sound on that B flat. Sopranos don't ever force. You're just the harmonic here. stay to the background, okay? So I would suggest having altos singing the tenor line down in the tenor range. Let me just say one other thing. We're going to progress through this. The B flat attack on page 40. Make sure at this moment we have the tenors singing in falsetto, basically. There's no way we want to, we want the tenors screaming up there. Altos, you're singing in a comfortable tessitura. If you're singing a B flat, humming an alto B flat there, that's a very comfortable spot for you. Sopranos humming on a B flat is brutally difficult. Okay? Do not be the first ones to make that sound there. We shouldn't hear the top B flat octave until the tenors have established their octave. Definitely take a big breath before this B flat and sigh into it. Okay? Then no breath. I don't breathe here, but I'm having to take a catch. Then dictated those notes and really dramatic espressivo. Breath and then just float into this next breath. Stagger, breathe. Pulse with a little light breath. Now take your time. Next note, mezzo forte. Diminuendo, breath, piano. Breath. Start not too soft. No breath. Stagger, breathe all over the place. Now the change from the G to the B flat, you can think portamento, you can think just more air. It should just float into the top. And what we've done many times is to have the chorus even go a little longer than the orchestra cutoff. Okay, so that the last thing you hear is the orchestra, is the chorus just sustaining that high note. Okay, uh, this is such a magic piece. You're going to just adore singing this. Remember, stagger, breathe. Ben will reinforce where you're going to take communal breaths, but stagger, breathe, so that these long phrases just feel like they go on forever and ever. Never force the humming. If it does, and sopranos especially, sometimes it just doesn't sound. Trust that you've got other people around you that the note will sound. Don't ever feel you have to push. Okay? I'm going to spend a little bit of time on Va Pensiero just to talk about it in general, talk about the text and some of the peculiarities of it. The most important thing with Va Pensiero is that the legato line be sustained on the vowels. Va Pensiero. And the other thing is that the 16th notes don't sound like Stravinsky. That's the most important thing for me. Yes, the accompaniment is triplet based and your rhythm is 16th note based, but you never want it to sound like a combat between triplet background and 16th notes. So if our tempo is like this, 2, 3, Va pensiero, pensiero. This little dolce portamento down. Now, portamento for a chorus is one of the hardest things to do. What you want to think is that the main note, the top note, is more important than the passing between the notes. So don't drop off of that F sharp too early. Siero. It's basically pa, pa, with a little connective tissue. It's not glissando, pa. It's pa, poro, and then after you release that low C sharp, energized. That's why he has the diminuendo. Solari dorate. And when you say ali dorate, golden wings, rate, that phrase just is a wisp of air that diminuendos naturally, even though there's not a diminuendo marked, rate, that it just evaporates. Vati posa sui clivi, sui colli. Now you've got these accents on clivi. Those accents shouldn't be hard accents. They're just sighing accents. It's clivi sui colli, and then the double L of colli is what makes the phrase finish. I don't know how else to explain it. Fati posa sui clivi, sui colli. Again, when I'm breathing, it's just because I'm running out of air. There should not be a breath at that after the comma of clivi, of course. Okay? Now, olezzano. This is a voiced olezzano. Usually double Z's are t sounds, but this is a soft DZ sound. Olezzano. And that crescendo up the octave from the low C sharp. That's again, it's an expressive crescendo. It's gotta come from your body. And we get to molly. Again, we've got this molly, double L, diminuendo, even though it's not marked. Laure dolci del suolo nato, nata, legatissimo, legatissimo. Now, here we have some other markings. Del Giordano Leri. See how ridiculous that sounds when I do a bumpy accent on those three notes. And they want to be accents that come out of your body. Del Giordano Leri saluta. Now, here's a phrase where you don't diminuendo the phrase because we want to give the feeling that this we're going to sing across this rest. This the luta rest dicione. Now here we have some staccati. What are you going to do? Oh, 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 ri, ah, no, you would never make a dry staccato there. I think what Verdi wanted here was so don't make the staccato dry or coloratura sounding or anything like that. Just take it as a change from simple legato. He wrote these accents and the staccati just to say, don't sing the whole piece with a molassesy legato. Use the text here to be espressivo. Okay? And now we get to one of the great moments. What is this portamento up on Rate o mia patria? Again, it's just your soul spilling over to get up the sixth here. Okay, so this is the biggest portamento. This is one where you may want to think really, really feel your voice digging into that portamento, and then once you've got that portamento, oh mia patria, take a big breath here, a big espressivo breath. Si bella to say my country so beautifully. Beautiful. So we portamento up, oh mia patria, with a crescendo down to the bottom C sharp, espressivo breath, si bella e perduta. And now we can go back to our piano. Now we can do the diminuendo. O membranza sica, ra e fa. I divide this ra e fatal, ra e fatal. Now make sure you hold this half note all the way. And then arpador. Now the arpa is technically still piano, but this explosion of sound can't sound like a piano, a tiny little sound going to an explosive sound. Again, it destroys the mood of the piece. So make sure when you're talking about the golden harps that the arpa, even though it's not fortissimo yet, still has some body of sound into it. And then all of a sudden the tone goes golden and just blooms immediately. And we have do, de, fati, di, chi, chi. The people that have the dotted rhythm, the third women's part and the bass, really do a nice little punctuation with your 16th note against the triplet. Okay? Keeping in mind that this is not Kodai and we don't need to hear anything that defined. I don't know how to explain it. It's accurate, but it's not overbearing in a way. It just happens. So Fati di ci fa va di ci va. The triplet nice and even, and the dotted Fati di ci fa topo, a 16th note after the triplet that doesn't sound like an exercise in rhythm. Okay, then this is just no sound, just air going out sottovoce, meaning just then I do a little thing here. I try to put this 16th note of sa li chi pendi. I use that 16th note to connect pendi. So in other words, perché dry dal sa now espressivo. Then le memoria, same thing, not too weak, even though we're still piano, that the le med blends into the fortissimo memoria. Nel petto raccendi, same idea with the rhythms. Ci favela del te. Now this is a great moment. Oh, che fu. Again, triplet with the dotted, with just this, yeah. Then, pianissimo. Absolutely no rubato. Oh, simile di soli. Absolutely whispered. Traggi un suono di a little more espressivo on crudo, this horrible lament. Lamento. Now, as the orchestra crescendos, crescendo on the low C sharp, and this is another one of those big portamentos. Oh, ti spiri. Now, here we can't breathe. Remember, we had this si bella the first time it happened, but here we can't breathe. So, this is all about stagger breathing so that you get a maximum amount of impact on that ti spiri, signor, without the breath. Concento, stay full here. In fonda al patire virtù. Now, start this next phrase. Subito piano. In full piano with a gradual crescendo that doesn't have a bump in it, so that I feel in fondo party. We build up to that D, and then we do a gradual diminuendo all the way through the phrase. So in other words, dynamically, it's just one arc without any feeling at any moment that there is a dramatic change in the dynamic, so that you come over diminuendo, one long arc, then another one, the same thing, maybe a little bit bigger the second time, the dynamic bloom of the crescendo, and then the very last. Virtu. Make sure this last virtu, even though it's pianissimo, we get a little energy in that V. And then the big trick, sing all the way through to the last chord of the orchestra. And again, sometimes here, some conductors will even let the chorus go past the last orchestra. Boom, 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 boom. And we're still on with a really, I don't, some people say, well, when you get that soft, you have to do a hum. Please do. I'm so against that. We find an oo vowel. And if your voice cracks, don't worry. Don't worry. But don't, when you come back in, don't bump whatever volume we're at. We want this last oo vowel to just float past the orchestra into the house. You're sending your prayers, your thoughts back back to Jerusalem, uh, uh, on golden wings. So everything is that atmosphere. Nothing is hard and angry. Everything is hopeful. You're experiencing, you're being tormented. You're subjected people at this point. But in this chorus, you're sending nothing but positive thoughts back to your homeland. And the sound has to have that throughout the entire number. Um, a lot of the specifics we didn't get to, but I don't work on specifics. I work more with big picture, and then the specifics make sense in how they create the big picture. Ways to make rhythm work as far as how they're notated, but that they are in line with the musical expression at any given moment. Vowels that blend. This is, if there's one vocal thing I can say to you, is make sure all of your vowels in operatic singing blend. That's going to make the choral sound more massive. Remember, I used the term la massa, the mass of the chorus. It's going to give your clay more uniformity to be able to shape properly. So when you're practicing this music and you're saying the text, try to get the same color vowels. I'll just take, let's do the phrase. Well, let's just the phrase at the beginning. Va pensiero sull'ali dorate. Vati posa not sui clivi, sui colli. I tell people when you sing an E vowel in Italian, you should think the German umlaut sound. It's a bizarre concept, but if you think E, if you listen to Pavarotti sing an E, he never sings an E that goes like E. It's always E, E. It always has the height of the German umlaut. And that's the vowel approach to singing Italian operatic music. And for me, all operatic music, quite frankly. Um, I hope I've given you a lot of ideas. That's what it's about. And don't get frustrated if you don't get everything at once. No one should be able to get everything at once. Take one component of what we were talking about and look at it and see how it applies to different moments in the score. Okay? Um, I'm gonna look at the questions. Oh dear. Um, who knew I was humming all wrong? It's you thought it was the one thing you could do. Just play around with the difference. One other thing, when we're talking about vowels, play around with, oh, what is it? What if I do it? What is right versus wrong? Sometimes you can say do it this way, but sometimes if you can compare it to something, wow, if say an e vowel really e spread this way, and then say an e e, wow, you see how it really just focuses the tone right where you want it. Um, uh, what was the other thing I was going to say? It, say a closed vowel really closed, and say an open vowel really open, and see the difference between the two. Sometimes just the difference will make things very clear. Um, bu- 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 yeah, 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 yeah. Good, 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 good. I think you've all caught on. I'm really the comments look all positive. I think you're all set up for a brilliant recording here. I can't wait to hear it. Um, Ben and I are going to be in touch again, and I've said to Ben if there are any more questions. I know it was a short time. For me, I tend to really focus on details, and that takes time. There's no other way. But just think of a few things at a time, and you're going to find it's going to add on because basically we're aiming for the same direction: uniformity, clarity of diction without the diction taking the tone in all these different spiky directions. I like to say, let the vowels come into your sound. Don't go the other way. Don't let the vowel take your voice in a place it doesn't want to go. That's my approach. Um, oh boy, 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 boy. Let's see. Um, I'm going to let you all go. This was a great rehearsal, even though I didn't get any feedback directly and can't see your faces. I'm so happy to talk with you like this. Um, Again, any questions you have for me, you reach dpalumbo, medopera.org. Um, I wish you all the best for the rest of the week and just stay well. I hope you're all as positive and as hopeful for the direction that things are going right now because I think we're headed in the right direction. Okay. Thank you so much, guys. See you soon. Bye.